You're listening to the International Moving Podcast, your guide to moving to another country, brought to you by SDC International Shipping, LA's finest. An international move is exciting. It's a time to start over, establish a new business maybe, reestablish family ties, or retire where your budget will do more for you. Please enjoy today's episode, and if you have any questions about your international move, give us a call at 888-779-3962. That's 888-779-3962. Hey everyone, this is Jim. Welcome back. Thanks for joining me for today's podcast episode. A lot of people are talking about relocating, moving in 2025, and this is a topic we talk about quite a bit. Of course, we talk about relocating and what it's like for, let's say, a student who's maybe going to study abroad for a few years. We talk about expats, people moving for personal reasons, professional reasons, or just simply looking for a better lifestyle. And this trend is continuing in 2025. More Americans than we've seen in the past are making that decision to move abroad. And again, whether it's for work, retirement, family, adventure, or just a better quality of life, people are actually following through on it. If you've ever researched what it takes, however, to make that kind of a move, you've probably realized a few things. Number one, it is very overwhelming when you just look at the whole of it, because between shipping, logistics, customs paperwork, relocation costs, packing, insurance, and not the least of which is deciding where to go, it's a lot for someone to take in. And many times it happens in stages. You become discontent with whatever it is that wherever you're working, wherever you're living, the situation that you may find yourself in. And so you begin to consider some of your options. Now, over the past 4 years, we've seen quite a few challenges in the financial world. And we see this happening across the board. I would say at the beginning of, maybe 2024, it seemed to me that a few locations you would definitely have an advantage in certain locations as compared with others. And that's going back 12 to, 16 months ago when I was thinking that way. Today I feel a little bit different about it, because today everything is changing so quickly. By the time you get from where you are to where you want to be, if it's specifically for financial reasons, I think a lot of people will discover that they're not maybe saving quite as much as they hope they would. And that's not to say that you can't relocate and find a better, more cost-effective type of situation for yourself and your family. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that the world in general, at least the populated areas that people always talk about moving to, those areas are starting to have more and more in common as people begin to move there. So, for example, if you're talking about moving to a small town and that town becomes popular, we've seen that happen here in the U.S. One of the towns that I moved to originally from New Jersey, well, matter of fact, the town I grew up in, New Jersey, was a small town. And then eventually people from the city began to move to the suburbs, and now it's like a little city in and of itself. Same thing has happened in Florida. Same thing has happened in the Carolinas. It's happening in Costa Rica right now. And so the difference is because relocation is available to everyone basically today, whereas in the past the logistics made it maybe a little more difficult. The people that made the move were either people that, and I don't want to pigeonhole groups of people together, but usually people that were traveling light, really had nothing to lose, or people that had quite a bit of money, but you didn't really see the in-between. I'm thinking about my own family that came over way back when from Italy and landed in Ellis Island. When I hear the stories about the people coming over, most people had like a few suitcases and the clothes on their back, and that was about it. And they came here seeking opportunity with just about nothing. So, but then you can watch the older movies and hear the stories about the Titanic, for instance, which had the poorer class working people below and the very rich, very wealthy, very affluent people above. And you can see a situation like that too. But today, again, you see that, I guess in a way it is kind of the same today, but there's some things that you probably should be aware of when you're planning to move overseas, because the information will definitely make it easier for you in the planning stages, in the execution stages, and you'll be aware of what type of people that you can bring on board. Think about it like this. When you're making a big decision in life, having several counselors around you to help navigate the situation is better than doing it all by yourself. For example, maybe you need to talk with an accountant to see how the finances will affect your situation and what your responsibilities are, both in the long and the short term. A lot of people think, well, if I move to another country, I don't have to pay taxes anymore to the United States, and that's not true in most situations. There's other situations too, but that's why talking to a CPA, maybe that has experience with expats going to the country that you're considering going to, somebody like that would be worth talking to. Maybe you need to talk to an attorney or talk to real estate agents. In other words, there are experts in each of these fields that will make the entire process much easier for you. And that goes for the shipping of your household goods as well. That's what we're here for, SDC International Shipping. This is something the team does every day. SDC works with people. We have relocation specialists that specialize in the part of the world, the country that you are going to. So, and by the way, I didn't make this announcement last time. I might as well let everybody know now. We just launched a new website. It's specifically targeting people moving from the United States to the UK. The URL for that is www.movefromusa2uk.com. That's movefromusa2uk.com. And there you'll find specific information about making the move to the UK, specialty information about things such as the different types of visas and how different things work over there. Lots of knowledge there. Of course, online you can also find plenty of expat communities, no matter where it is that you're going to. But when you look at the big picture, well, actually, let me walk you through a few things. Let's talk about this because I think you'll find it very interesting. People are rethinking what life should feel like. That was a statement that really stuck with me. I wrote it down. I heard somebody mention it recently, and they were just saying that some people, maybe you can't quite put your finger on it, on what you want, but maybe it's not exactly what you have right now. And with the rise of remote work, global mobility, access to digital resources, living internationally has gone from a faraway dream to a reality for more people than ever before. And that will continue throughout this year. In the last few years, we've seen many families, professionals, especially in places that stick out to me, like California, New York, Chicago. They've been looking for things like more affordable housing. They've been looking for a slower pace of life. They've been looking for lower taxes or a different cultural type of atmosphere. When we look at cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, we've seen a sharp increase in the number of people who are looking for a different type of lifestyle and who are looking for it abroad. I would say that more people than ever before, including people overseas, they're craving a new beginning. And for a lot of people, that also means a new country. And add to that the desire to enjoy a better work-life balance, to have better healthcare options, maybe issues like family safety or just the adventure of raising a family in a different culture. This has really caught on with a lot of people, and I guess you could just come right out and say that it's become a movement. And it's not just retirees anymore. I think that a lot of people that would fit into the digital nomad category, people with laptops, people who are remote workers, maybe they have younger families, some are career professionals, relocating for lifestyle, relocating for opportunity. I guess the point is there's no one type of American expat anymore like we could point to in the past. And so the decision to move abroad, it always starts with a vision, a better life, more freedom, more connection, less stress. The key is to find the right country, the one that's going to be the right fit for you to help bring that vision to life. Recently there has been some celebrities that moved from here in the United States, West Coast and East Coast, to different countries. And I don't know if it was a knee-jerk reaction, but they're discovering that they don't like it, that they miss home. And that's something that happens too. I mean, one of the things that makes sense, which I don't know if these people did this or not, but you want to be able to at least have spent some time in that country, not just looking at the brochure, right? But spending some time, maybe having a vacation there. If you have kids, bringing the kids with you to see if they like it, if they enjoy it. I know most of the moves that I've made in my lifetime, they weren't blind moves, really. I mean, maybe moving from one street to another, a whole lot of thought didn't go into it at the time, all within the same local area. But when it came to moving out of state, of course, I wanted to spend a little bit of time in that destination area, making sure that that was something that I wanted. A lot of times people just go on vacations in foreign countries, and that plants the seed for the future. They enjoy it there. The lifestyle's a better fit for them. And sometimes things change. Maybe people enjoy where they are, but the thought of warmer weather, or maybe they're in a city and the thought of living maybe in a more rural type of area is a better fit for them. So there's no such thing as a one-size-all-fits-all type of situation. But some of the countries that keep coming up again and again and again, let me just talk to you briefly about a few of them. Portugal is one that continues to be a top destination for remote workers, retirees, and families. It's known because it has a laid-back lifestyle. It's known for having a stunning coastline, beaches, affordable living, and it also has a visa system that's friendly to non-EU residents. So from places like Lisbon, that's known as a creative energy center of sorts, to the slower pace of Algarve, Portugal offers what many consider to be a better quality of life as compared with what people traditionally live here in the West. Next, Mexico. Mexico remains one of the most accessible and affordable options for U.S. citizens. About 2 years ago, when we started this podcast, maybe it was a little longer now, but you might remember if you listened to the first or second episode, you can probably go back and find it. I think it was the first few episodes where I interviewed somebody who was living in Mexico. And they've lived in different states. I believe they had lived in California or Nevada, then in Texas, and then they went to Mexico. And they were there for X number of months out of the year, and then they would come back to see family during the extra hot summer months. Mexico, of course, like Florida, I guess, can get very, very hot during the summer times. But Mexico City was another option in Mexico that was very popular. Not exactly an expat community there, but I remember hearing an interview with a woman in her 40s who had come from where I was from in New Jersey. I was born in Newark, and she had lived in Newark, grown up there. And Newark is kind of like, I don't want to call it a little New York, but it's a city, and it has the pluses and minuses that go with a city. And I forgot what profession she was in. I think she was a legal aid or legal assistant. Maybe she was she was a school teacher now I think about it. Well, being a school teacher can be a very stressful job depending on the age of the kids that you're working with. But she was talking about how when she arrived in Mexico City, she said that she felt all of the stress and the anxiety that was commonplace, that was normal for her daily life in Newark, just drained out of her. And she didn't realize how stressed she had actually been and for how long until she vacationed in Mexico City. Now, she was the type of person that enjoyed the art scene, and she enjoyed Spanish Mexican cuisine. Mexico City has, I believe, more art galleries, high end, than any other place in the world. So, and she was saying that she loved it so much that when she went back home, the first thing she did was she made a plan to move from Newark to Mexico City. Some people like the city life. They would not thrive in a more isolated area, maybe not even in an expat community per se. And during the interview, she had mentioned that she didn't have any trouble with the people not speaking English. There were plenty of people there that spoke English. And, Mexico City, like any other city, has a better spots and spots that you wouldn't want to go in after dark. You could say that about any city in the world, but, she was aware of that. And I believe that the last time they interviewed her, she was 2 years into it, and she was just as happy as could be that she made the switch. And, that's something that a lot of people think about, but they never actually follow through in. Mexico also has a lot of beach towns there. That's usually where you'll find the growing community of expats near the beach areas. Puerto Vallarta. I'm probably mispronouncing that a little bit. I'm not great with the Spanish accents. Yucatan, a lot of expats and retirees there. And these areas are known for strong infrastructure, internet, an easier cultural type of transition. One of the people were telling me that they noticed one of the first things that people make eye contact more there and acknowledge you. And it's considered rude to not acknowledge them back. And the people there are a little more friendly maybe than we're used to in many parts here in the United States. And that was one of the things I remember growing up, taking a walk through the neighborhood. And I'm in my late 50s now, but I remember as a kid walking with my mother or grandmother through one of the older neighborhoods, and she would greet people, and as we were walking by, and they would greet her back, and sometimes she would talk, and I would take a walk with her through the neighborhood. We'd go to a store, she'd buy me a comic book. We're going way back now, and it was different then. Today, neighbors, a lot of times they'll just look at the ground, they'll avoid eye contact. And she said, if you're an American and you go over there and you do that, well, they can take offense at something like that because that's not something that they're used to there. Interesting. So, over time, I've become used to it here, over there. And it depends what state you're in also. I noticed that in a lot of the southern states here in the United States, people were a little more outgoing and friendly. I don't know if that's changed or not. I've been here long enough that I don't really notice as much. But there's something to remember, the locals and how people interact with one another can be different than what you're used to. And so you have to be open to what life is like there, how people interact with each other there. Costa Rica is another area that is very popular. It's been marred recently by an increase in gang violence, which is a shame. But Costa Rica has grown quickly, and I remember somebody saying to me that one of the marks of a growing area is a spike in crime. That's when you know that the area is about to explode in growth, when you see that happening. I don't know if that's exactly true or not, or if that's according to statistics, but it does kind of seem like it makes sense. To me, it does, anyway. All right, and then we can talk about places like France. France is still a top choice for a lot of people. I know people who have been there, who have vacationed there, that loved it. And more so, I'm not talking about the big city like a Paris, but outside of that, where you find more of what old France used to be like. That's still there. People are, for example, homemade soaps. Recently, I bought homemade soap. I forgot what state I ordered it from, but I saw an advertisement for it, and I thought, wow, I'm just so used to buying soap. You buy whatever's in the store. If you go to a Walmart or a food, wherever you buy your food from, they have soap there. Maybe you don't really give it too much of a second thought. And then I decided to buy this soap the way it used to be made. I bring this up because there's places in France and other parts of Europe where they still make bread the way bread used to be made. They still make pasta the way pasta used to be made. They still make soap and other things the way it used to be. And if you've never experienced that, even something simple like soap, you can think, wow, this is really a lot better than what we have today. So, if you've never experienced that before, it's the little things like that that kind of stick with you. But of course, the best country is going to depend for you, is going to depend on your goals. It's going to depend on your family. I mean, it's one thing if you and your spouse are happy, but it's another if your kids are miserable there. So it's something that really, it's a choice that everybody has to make together. And your values, that's another issue. Different countries look at things a little bit differently than others. If you're, I brought up the issue of if you're moving with kids. That's something really that we don't really talk about. I haven't mentioned that much of on this podcast, but just if you think about it, for those of you who are moving with kids, then the journey that you're taking isn't just about geography, it's also about your family's future. So you need the right preparation, you need the right support. Children, for the most part, they say adapt really quickly, but they also rely on routine and familiarity in order to thrive, and that's the emotional side of it. And it's just as important as the logistics. So they say that one of the best things that you can do is involve your kids early in the moving process. Talk to them about where you're going. Show them pictures. If it's a place that you've already been on vacation together, talk to them about it. If it requires you to learn another language, or at least a little bit about another language, then that's something that you can do together as a family. And help them imagine their new life so that they have something, not just, if you're leaving, and I remember this as a kid, when people would move away, eventually we moved away too, but when you lose your friends as a child, you look at it differently than if you're an adult, a parent, and you're looking at, from an adult point of view, at your children losing a friend because the family moves away or whatever. Father gets a new job somewhere else and they're gone. And in your mind, you're thinking, they're young, they'll make new friends and life can go on. But to them, it can be more impactful than that. For them, it could be like their world is being torn apart. And so you have to help them focus on what they're gaining, because they are going to be conscious of what they're leaving behind. And maybe, most of you, I'm sure you haven't been a kid in a while, but think of it in your own life when a certain period of time ended and another one began. So if you don't have children, maybe you can't really relate to this. I don't have children myself. Plenty of my friends do. But if you think about the time when you went from being single, men can especially relate to this, from being single to being in a serious relationship to getting married. There's certain types of freedoms that you let go of in order to be a good husband, right? In order to be a responsible man and to take care of your family. It changes you. For those of you who are a little bit older and your children become adults, then you're moving into another stage of life in which they're not relying on you like they used to. They're making their own decisions. Sometimes they're moving far away and you're not going to see them every day like you did throughout all those years that you were raising them. So you're leaving that behind. That's what I mean by the feeling of loss. We all get it as we go through different stages of life. And if you're moving to another country, you just have to be aware that your kids are going to feel that about their friends. I'm sure there's some cases where maybe they're only going to miss one person. Maybe they don't have a big social circle, but that's fine. I guess the point I'm trying to make is include them in the whole process as much as you can. And of course, you're going to have to research the local schools, the healthcare systems that are there to the country you're going to, the community resources, to see how that will affect your kids. There's plenty of international schools out there. And so What support are they going to need academically? What support are they going to need socially and maybe even emotionally? If they're really small, make sure you keep their favorite toys and maybe you can keep the same old routines and certain things so that there's some familiarity. Not everything is brand new. But at SDC International Shipping, SDC has helped families relocate who've had newborns, teenagers, and everything in between. They know how to ship baby cribs, musical instruments, sports gear, even teddy bears. And because those are the pieces of home that can matter the most to your kids. So, okay, let's go on a little bit further. Shipping your belongings overseas. I think I'm right about the 25-minute mark now, so I want to start wrapping this up for today. But shipping your belongings overseas, SDC specializes in moving household goods overseas from door to door. And that means more than just picking up boxes and dropping them off at the port. They handle everything the whole journey, from your current home to right through the door of your new home. Everything starts with inventory. So the SDC team will work with you to determine exactly what's being shipped, how much space it will take, how it needs to be packed, and how soon it needs to arrive. From there you can look at what the best shipping method is going to be. Two primary shipping methods. One is by air, one is by sea. And for most full household moves, that's going to mean ocean freight. And you can either have your household goods packed into your own private container. In some cases, that will include a vehicle or a shared container if you don't have that much, if you're moving a smaller load. If you have a time-sensitive shipment or a smaller load, then air freight can take care of a lot of things that way, even though it's a little more costly. The packing is critical, especially when you want your items insured. And so that's why it's great to have a professional team of packers that are going to use international grade materials and the latest methods that meet customs and insurance standards. A lot of people don't know that. They just think that, they're going to pack their stuff, they'll get insurance on it, and if it breaks, the insurance will cover the replacement of it. But it's not as simple as that, right? Did you ever you ask yourself, why do things have to be so hard? That's one of the questions that you might ask if you're moving internationally and you find out that, you can't just pack in any type of materials that you want, because they're not going to insure those items, because they're not going to be considered to be properly packed. Then there's customs. Certain things have to be in certain types of containers. Other things are not allowed. Even certain types of packing materials aren't allowed. So, but you don't have to worry about any of that when you're working with a professional relocation expert like you will be working with SDC International Shipping, because they already know that. They specialize. You'll be paired with a specialist who understands the destination country that you're going to. And they know all the ins or outs that come with the entire moving process. They understand what can clear customs and what cannot, and they'll work with you so that everything will be taken care of. One of the things about customs is there's a certain way that everything has to be listed, the value of all the items. You can't just wing it. If you wing it, then if it doesn't meet their expectations at customs, then that can cause a delay or worse. And so sometimes that will mean even more money out of your pocket. That's why you want to work with a professional when you're doing this. Okay, I think we'll put the bookmarker in it there. International moving is not something that you should be afraid of. It's not something that is so overwhelming that it's only for the very wealthy or the people traveling with the clothes on their back. That's certainly not the case. But you do have to know that we live in a very technical world. We live in a world where there's no shortage of paperwork and fees and how things should be set up. And when you're working with a company like SDC International Shipping, this is something the people you'll be working with directly do every single day. They're experts at this. When you don't understand how things work, there's a certain amount of anxiety that goes with it. If you've ever been shopping for a car before and you're not aware of the little tricks sometimes that the car salespeople play. Maybe you have a lot of anxiety, so you watch a few videos. But imagine just going with somebody who was in the business already and having them negotiate on your behalf. It would make the whole car buying experience much easier. The same thing with any type of major activity like that. That's why I mentioned, if you're confused about how your taxes are going to be affected, then you talk to a CPA who understands the expat experience, what you're going to have to pay, how all of that will work. If you have some legal questions, yes, you can look online. Yes, a lot of things are super cheap and free online. But when it comes to your specific situation, nothing beats talking to a professional and getting the right kind of advice that you need. Sometimes when you try and cut a corner here or there, I learned that, believe me, with the legal side. I was looking into a few things with real estate. I found some information online. It all looked good. I thought, well, I'm not going to pay X number of dollars to an attorney. I'll just do it myself. And then suddenly I got to a point where there seemed to be conflicting advice. And so I bit the bullet, took out my wallet, and it really didn't cost that much, but sat down and talked with an attorney. He explained everything to me. I asked questions. He answered the questions. And within a span of 30 minutes, I had all the information that I needed. I had his signature. He was taking care of some paperwork for me, and life was just much easier. So certain things, yeah, you can cut corners, you can save money, definitely go for it. When you're doing something that's going to affect the rest of your life, like international relocation, then go with the people that know what they're doing. Go with the people that have experience. Sure, go online, talk to others who've done it before, but get the help you need when you need it. All right, that's it for today's episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. Let other people know that the International Moving Podcast is here. We have daily episodes, actually. Laura Lee, if you've listened to her before, she uploads our podcasts that go from Tuesday through Saturday. I'm here every Monday. Anyway, this is Jim. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next week. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks for listening. Whether you're relocating within the country or moving to the other side of the world, we're here to help from start to finish. Connect with us today at 888-779-3962. That's 888-779-3962.